First City Focus is supported in part by Duke Energy, powering the lives of its customers and communities. Online at duke-energy.com. Andy Ellerman of First City Wealth, serving Vincennes and surrounding communities to help with investing and planning for your future before and during retirement years. First City Wealth online at firstcitywealth.com. Colonial Assisted Living. Colonial is an assisted living residence promoting independence and dignity for each resident while providing the necessary assistance for daily living. Colonial Assisted Living, 1622 South Hart Street Road in Vincennes, 812-895-1504. And by donations contributed by Vincennes PBS viewers like you. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this special episode of First City Focus. I'm your host, Nicole Carey. April is Organ Donation Awareness Month, and our local area is nothing short of miraculous stories of giving and receiving life thanks to organ donation. On this episode, we'll meet the daughter of Lisa Wells, who recently gave the gift of life at the end of her life at Good Samaritan Hospital. We'll talk with Brenda Hancock, whose husband Brock received a new lease on life in 2009, thanks to a multiple organ transplant. We'll share the journey of Katrina Memering, a Knox County mother of two, who after receiving a double lung transplant 14 years ago, is now searching for a living kidney donor. And we'll talk with one of the Indiana Donor Network's family advocates, Shelby Reed, about the need for organ donors. It's all right now on this special episode of First City Focus. More than 1,200 lives were saved last year thanks to transplant organ donations from Indiana, and that's a 22% increase from 2023. Earlier this year, Good Samaritan Hospital helped coordinate one of its first major organ donations in over a year. It came as a life-saving gift made by Lisa Wells of Sumner, Illinois. Her daughter, Samantha Wells, is proud to tell her story.
So Mom was 69 years old. She had just celebrated her 69th birthday in November. She was, I would say, my biggest supporter, my biggest fan, and I was her biggest fan. She was as selfless as the day is long. She was such a fan of like dirt car racing, football, college basketball. We experienced a lot of things like that together.
Samantha proudly recalls when her mother made the decision to become an organ donor, inspired by a tragedy that turned into an inspiration. 27-year-old sprint car driver Brian Clausen died after an accident on the track in 2016. But his tragedy in turn saved the lives of 5 people through his organ donation, along with healing many others through tissue donation. He started a movement inspiring more than 7,000 donors to sign up through the Indiana Donor Network's Driven to Save Lives program, including Lisa Wells.
Then shortly after that, when she renewed her driver's license in November, she said, if Brian can do it, I can do it. And I said, yeah, Mom, I think that's terrific. His family had kind of started this campaign, Driven to Save Lives, and they were recruiting people to, become organ donors. There's just not enough organ donors, and so she was excited to be able to do that.
Lisa, a former smoker, had 20 years between her and her last cigarette. However, diagnosed with COPD, she continued to battle with her health when it came to her lungs. Earlier this year, a flare-up unfortunately left Lisa in dire condition at Good Samaritan Hospital in Vincennes, and decisions had to be made.
My dad and I, after talking with the doctors, had collectively decided we were going to remove life support based on her wishes. And they came in and said, hey, your mom was an organ donor. And I said, oh, okay, I forgot about that. And actually my dad didn't even know. It was just an overwhelming feeling, but I thought what a sense of pride she would have. She would be so excited to know that she was going to get to do this.
And with the decision to donate, Good Samaritan officials started putting plans into action, including a way to pay the utmost respect to Lisa and her family with an honor walk.
A lot of hard work has went into this helping this patient and this family is a very emotional thing for people who take care of the patients. So I think it's a very rewarding that they can see this help someone else.
Samantha says the hospital staff and Indiana donor officials rallied around her and the family, helping to support them during this difficult time of saying goodbye to her mother while looking to do the most good at the same time.
Terrific. The hospital was, the ICU floor, all the doctors and nurses, and then also the staff from Indiana Donor Network. We had different advocates each day, different coordinators each night, and I mean, they didn't push anything on us, but they answered all my questions. One of the coordinators even talked with me for almost an hour that night before when her honor walk was the next day.
And when it came time to escort her mother down the corridors of Good Samaritan, Samantha says it was exactly what she had hoped for.
I had watched multiple honor walks before online and probably cried while I watched them, even though I didn't know the people. But to be part of one was a huge thing, and then for it to be my mom was even a bigger deal, bigger than I could have ever imagined. And the support that we had from family, friends, even our local fire department, lining the halls, we were just absolutely overwhelmed, but in a good way.
Samantha and her father approved of the hospital posting her mother's honor walk to their social media accounts, helping to raise awareness of organ donation and the selfless gift her mother made. And it's having a positive effect in our community.
I will say that through this process, I have had at least one person reach out to me and say that because of what she witnessed with my mom, she's going to sign up to be an organ donor. And I had another friend who she wants to volunteer to make the donor blankets because the Indiana Donor Network gives a donor blanket to each donor family. And so she wants to help make those blankets. And I think that's fantastic that people loved my mom that much and love me that much that they want to be a part of it.
Lisa's honor walk is also prompting new discussions that many families haven't thought of having with their loved ones.
It's an important conversation to have because maybe your loved one wants to do that and maybe they have not checked the box or signed the paper for their license to become an organ donor. And so maybe you don't know what their final wishes are. And I know death and dying is not a fun thing to talk about, but I think it's important for a family to discuss all of that just to know where each other stands. And as far as making the decision to become an organ donor, I think look at it like I did, like my mom did. You know, you don't need your organs where you're going. So if you can save a life, I don't know what more selfless gift you can give somebody than to save their life.
It truly is a selfless gift. Well, our local area is also home to some special people who know exactly what a gift organ donation is. Brock Hancock was born and raised in Knox County, proud to call the area just south of Monroe City home all his life. Brock's wife Brenda, a native of West Union, Illinois, also began calling Knox County home when she and Brock married in 1999. And for all of those who were blessed to know Brock, we know how much he loved his life and everyone in it.
Brock was charismatic, fun, hilarious, loving. He would defend you to the end. He was just an amazing person. He was a great husband, great father. He really was an incredible human being.
It was in 2007 when Brock was diagnosed with a genetic disease, multiple endocrine neoplasia type 1, or MIN1. It's a rare syndrome that grows tumors on the endocrine system, and Brock's body was growing tumors, especially on his liver and pancreas. Although these tumors were not cancerous, they were dangerous all the same.
As they grow, they're taking up space and they're crowding out that healthy organ. So pancreas, liver, and that was the only place that he had disease at the time. So for 2 years, he really got in shape. He started really taking care of his body. He was working out, the nutrition, all of that, which I know helped immensely.
Brock was doing all he could to stay healthy, but the tumors were still growing. That's when IU Health's world-renowned transplant surgeon, Dr. Rodrigo Viana, called the Hancocks and asked if Brock would be willing to undergo a multiple organ transplant. 5 organs to be exact, which would replace his digestive system.
That was a little bit overwhelming. We weren't really expecting that. Not expecting a doctor to call you and say, hey, let's replace all your insides. But that was how they felt would be the best way to keep the disease from returning. So at this point, when we got to that point, he was actually getting fairly ill. I mean, he was not feeling well. And so by this point, we were like, this is our only option.
Brock went on the official transplant list in late March of 2009. 3.5 weeks later, the Hancocks received the call that there was a potential donor. As they headed to Indianapolis, they also knew that this may not be the answer they had been praying for.
They were very honest with us from the beginning that a lot of times they'll call you, you'll go up there, you'll be expecting to have a transplant that day, and then they find the organs will not work. So we were very much aware of that and cautiously optimistic as we traveled up there, and we arrived at the hospital. Yeah. We went to a small sort of pre-op room where we spent the day, and just not knowing whether or not it was going to happen that day. They went ahead and prepped him. Family started arriving, and there were a bunch of us up there. And we sat there all day while we waited.
Right.
And then as we were sitting there, one of the nurses who we eventually became very close with, because you do become like a little tight-knit community up there, we heard her say, she was on the phone and we heard her say, so Hancock is a go. And we knew then that it was going to happen, which adds a whole other level of emotion on it when you know, okay, this is it, we're doing this today. And so.
What kind of condition was Brock in at that point when you got the call?
He was very weak. His color was terrible. He looked gray, honestly. And we did find out later that one of the doctors did tell us that he probably only had 10 days to maybe 2 weeks before he wouldn't have been here.
After a remarkably smooth, textbook-style 6-hour surgery, Brock had 5 brand new organs that were tumor-free. After recovery, Brock settled into regular trips to Indianapolis for his anti-rejection infusions, and he gratefully was living life to the fullest, a life he was blessed to still be living, thanks to someone else's tragedy.
It was extremely humbling, probably one of the most humbling things that I've lived through, and I know he would say the same. What a gift that this family was willing to offer that up. It's incredible just to think of this family who's going through their darkest day and they're thinking of someone else.
Brenda and Brock's daughter was just 9, going on 10, when Brock had his transplant. Thanks to that gift of life, he was able to be there for Sydney as she continued to grow up.
We talked about it all the time. I mean, without the transplant, he would not have seen her graduate high school. He would have not seen her start her own business. I mean, become engaged. I mean, family vacations and all that. We would have missed all of that with him. So, I mean, it just, as I said before, it's just such an incredible gift that they gifted to us in their time of sorrow.
Not only did Brock enjoy every day that he was gifted through his transplant, he became an advocate for organ donation. Anyone scrolling through his Instagram account would know that, with his profile name proudly displayed as 5 Organ Han. Brock would often talk to those close to him about the miracle of life he received, often welling up with great emotion, which everyone understood. He and Brenda spent their time giving back to the Indiana Organ Network to help raise awareness.
We became volunteers. We did several events and just kind of threw ourselves into that for quite some time, because it is important. It is important for people to know. It's important for people to hear the stories like Brock's story of, you know, the life that he was able to live because of it. I mean, years added to his life, 14 to be exact. I mean, that is just, it's just amazing to think about it. And I don't think people think about what they're actually giving when they sign up to be an organ donor.
Brenda says it's important to spread awareness about organ donation because they learned firsthand that most folks aren't aware of the need until it hits closer to home.
You never know when you're going to be the one in need of something like this. You never know when it's going to be you that needs a new liver, that needs a new heart. And to keep that in mind, because you certainly would hope that someone would be generous enough to offer that to you when they're done with it. And that it can happen to anyone. I mean, I would have never dreamed that we would have been in that situation until you're there.
Brock never took for granted his time with family and friends, who in turn enjoyed their borrowed time with him as well. Unfortunately, his MIN-1 disease did not let up, as tumors eventually started growing in and around his head, which affected his vision and ultimately led to his passing in 2023. But for those extra 14 years, Brock made sure to make the most of his time here on Earth.
He's told me many times that he would never change a thing, even through his illness, his transplant. You know, he said, I have had a great life, and he meant it. And he did. He really did.
So how do you go forward, keeping his legacy going?
Talk about him.
And I know he's here today, and he has a great story, and you're helping tell that.
Thank you.
Brock will truly never be forgotten. Well, another Knox County resident who knows firsthand the gift of life is Katrina Memering. Katrina received a successful double lung transplant 14 years ago. Born with cystic fibrosis, she has dealt with medical issues that come with the condition all her life, almost losing her life before receiving her donated lungs. Since then, Katrina has lived a very full life. She and her husband adopted the first of their 2 children shortly after her transplant, and she even has maintained a life as an avid runner.
Having that transplant 14 years ago really was hard. I've had a lot of survivor's guilt. It turns out that my donor was 14 years old. Knowing that my donor was 14 and that he had a life that he could have lived, you know, without issue, without trouble, without fear, and knowing something happened that ended that without any notice, that he didn't get the chance. I think that's what pushed me a lot to do the tries and the halves and the 5Ks, is to go above and beyond what I thought I could, because he didn't have the opportunity to do it.
Katrina has enjoyed so much in life since that life-saving transplant, but now, after the years of healthy living with anti-rejection medicines and medical monitoring, her doctors say she desperately needs a new kidney. And to acquire a kidney donation from a deceased donor could take 3 to 5 years, time Katrina's doctors say she doesn't have. So a living donor is her best bet, and anyone out there, even you, could be the match Katrina is looking for. Katrina says she's not really comfortable with putting her situation on center stage, but she knows this is necessary to find a living donor and to be able to keep being there for her husband and children. So social media posts are circulating within our community and beyond, petitioning anyone and everyone to go through the process to see if they could be the match Katrina needs. But Katrina doesn't want anyone to see her story and feel bad for her.
I don't want pity. There's nothing to pity me for. I've gotten a second chance that I was never promised. And I have 2 kids that we adopted that I was never promised I'd even be a mom. But I've gotten that, and that's a huge blessing. I married a man that loves me, even though he knew from the beginning that this could be a possibility. Sadness does nothing for me. I want prayer and I want action and I want to know what I'm dealing with so I can fight it head on. Will we get through this? Will I get another chance? I feel in my soul that I will, but I can't say it until he brings it.
Katrina is at peace with her situation, and she says her faith is what brings her that peace.
The fact that I can open my eyes and I can move my feet and I can move around, that's motivation. Waking up and hearing my kids, even though sometimes they're squabbling, that's motivation. It's the small things. It's the things that I never was promised and that I have surrounding me and I have with me every day of every second. Because there's never a day that you don't think about transplant. There's never a day I don't think about it. I see the scars every time I get ready. I'm reminded every time I take my meds. There are reminders every day, all day, that I was not supposed to be here, that I am not supposed to be living this life that I am. But, there's those little mustard seeds, and they're teeny tiny, and you would barely see them if you blinked.
If you are interested in seeing if you could be the match Katrina is looking for, we have all the information you need to do just that on our website, vincentspbs.org. Well, while April is Organ Donation Awareness Month, the need for organ donors is a year-round need. The Indiana Donor Network helps facilitate the process within our state. Joining me now with more information is family advocate Shelby Reed. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we've heard 3 great stories already, and I know as a family advocate, you hear and you're a part of so many stories just like these, including your own father's donation. You're now a family advocate. Just share with our audience the journey that brought you to this point.
Yeah, it's quite a journey, so bear with me as I kind of tell you all the parts of our story, but I can kind of start from the beginning. I myself was in a role where I would work in hospitality and was very close with my family. We have a small farm and just spend a lot of time together. I have 2 wonderful siblings. I'm the oldest of 3, so and then I have my parents that have just raised all of us and kind of just been our biggest blessing and rocks through all of our childhood and then even into adult life. So we are very close. My mom and dad, they had gone on a vacation in July of 21, end of July of 21 together that they do every year with a group of friends. And unfortunately, while on that vacation, my dad suffered an injury, a traumatic injury to his brain, and he fought for his life. We fought for his life for many days at Deaconess Hospital, and unfortunately, he was not able to make it. And we were greeted in the face of a family advocate towards the end of his hospital stay, and with Indiana Donor Network, and she came to us and said, "We think that your dad can save lives through the gift of organ donation." And immediately my mom and my sister and I and more family members that were there, we couldn't believe, first of all, that this is the conversation we were having, but also started to give us a little bit of light in such a dark time that we thought, okay, something good can come of this. There's another family out there, much like us, over the last week that was just praying for a miracle. And our dad could be that miracle for them. So we slowly just kind of started that process with our family advocate. And we were supported through that. And my dad was able to gift and save 5 lives and multiple others through tissue donation as well. And that kind of just started my passion and our family's passion to tell his story. And then I thought there's got to be a way I can be even more involved, which started my pursuit to work for Indiana Donor Network. And when I saw the term family advocate and that role kind of come up, I thought, okay, that sounds like something, maybe I could do that exact same thing that family advocate did for us. Support these families through such a dark time, offer them that little bit of light, and honor their loved one as a hero like my dad was. Right. So I started that journey not long after, and now I've been able to be with Indiana Donor Network for 2 years and supporting families during that whole time, and it's been truly a blessing.
And I feel like it gives you that unique perspective that you understand right where they're at.
Yeah.
So what would you want families to know of potential donors when that time comes?
Yeah.
What do they need to know, I guess, to be able to help facilitate the decision that the donor made and continue on?
Yeah, the biggest thing to know is that you will have somebody with you the entire process. They will be answering your questions, providing you with support. We even do memory making with family. There's been many times that I've sat bedside with grieving wives, mothers, siblings, and we just sit together and we maybe make handprints. We record, their loved one's heartbeat. So we do things like that. But just knowing that you will have that support person with you the whole time, just kind of guiding you through your loved one giving the gift of life.
Yeah, I know we saw with Lisa. Wells' story, Samantha, her daughter, has a teddy bear now that has her mother's heartbeat in it. And she even said that if for some reason something would happen to that, it can be replaced.
Yes.
They have it on file.
Yes.
What a special memento to give the family, the loved ones, to keep for their memory's sake.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that, and like our family, we have my dad's handprint sitting right on our mantle that they had made for us when we were still in the hospital. We have his heartbeat and a heartbeat bear just as she does. And that bear, I had my little boy almost a year ago. And now I have, he unfortunately will never have got to meet my dad, his grandpa, but now I have this little heartbeat bear that growing up I'll be able to say, this is Grandpa Trevor's heartbeat and kind of just have that momentum too for him. So,
I know in talking with the families that I've talked with, conversations like this can be hard. No one wants to think of the end of life, but how important is it that folks really consider being an organ donor?
Yeah, it's very important. These are really hard conversations to have with your loved ones. Nobody wants to think about losing, your dad, your mom, your child. Nobody wants to have those, thoughts, but it's so important to know what your loved one's wishes are. So I do encourage families, or even you as an individual, if you know that that's something that you would want to do, as far as giving the gift of life, you can register, and that automatically just allows your family that knowledge that, this is what they want, we want to honor that, and just let us support you through that. There's a few different ways that you can register to be an organ donor. You can do it when you're at the BMV. You can say yes. You can also sign up on donatelifeindiana.org. You can also say yes when you're getting a hunting and fishing license. You can also say yes when you're applying for a professional license to work in the state of Indiana. And you can say yes on your health app or on your iPad or iPhone as well. Yeah. So really just having that already set in place. Of course, hopefully we live long, healthy, beautiful lives with our families. But in the event that something does happen, taking that weight of that decision off your family's shoulders in those moments. Yeah. I have seen that firsthand really help families start to be able to go through that grieving process and just be able to honor their person in that way.
Right. And not just registering yourself, but letting your family know that is the decision you've made ahead of time can be very helpful.
Yes. When we think about it, whatever brought us into the hospital, it could have been, a long-term illness. It could have been something sudden or tragic. But if you're incapacitated and on a ventilator at that point when you're in the hospital, your family is making a lot of decisions, having a lot of really hard conversations with doctors. So there's a lot of heaviness while you're in the hospital. But if there's that one conversation that maybe you had prior to something, if something terrible were to happen, that you know, okay, my dad said I would want to be able to give the gift of life, and so right then you can just say, okay, we're ready to honor that.
Yeah. And if you think about it, the decision that your father made led to you being here today. What do you think he would say if he knew the path that you've taken now, that kind of honors his legacy even further on?
Yeah. Gosh, that's a hard one. Of course, we wish every day he was here. So it's hard to say what he would say, but we hope that as a family and myself, every day we're just continuing to make him proud, by being helpful to other families, showing kindness, and just truly just honoring his legacy and telling his story to hopefully other families can be supported like we were. And I know he'd feel good about, my mom being taken care of so well and myself through the organization. So I think he'd want that for other families as well. So.
Absolutely. And it's so needed. And we appreciate all the work that you're doing and your father's donation that led you to this.
Thank you.
And again, we have all the information you need to find out about becoming an organ donor on our website, including the process for possibly becoming a living donor for Katrina Memering. Just visit our special section on vincenspbs.org, and maybe you can help give the gift of life. And with that, this special edition of First City Focus is coming to a close. For everyone here at Vincennes PBS, I'm Nicole Carey. We'll see you again next time.
First City Focus is supported in part by Duke Energy, powering the lives of its customers and communities. Online at duke-energy.com. Andy Ellerman of First City Wealth, serving Vincennes and surrounding communities to help with investing and planning for your future before and during retirement years. First City Wealth online at firstcitywealth.com. Colonial Assisted Living. Colonial is an assisted living residence, promoting independence and dignity for each resident while providing the necessary assistance for daily living. Colonial Assisted Living, 1622 South Hart Street Road in Vincennes, 812-895-1504. And by donations contributed by Vincennes PBS viewers like you. Thank you.